The summer season has always been primed for content. It's the season we got the Cinnamon Challenge, planking, and of course, a gorilla that will never be forgotten.
This is an interesting sign. What does this mean?
I'm sure you all heard about Harambe the gorilla. He was murdered in the Cincinnati Zoo last May.
But not in 2025. Instead of some dumb challenge that you don't understand why thousands of people are doing, we're getting instead what feels like the summer of censorship. On July 14th, Australian Karen group Collective Shout announced that they had sent over 1,000 emails to credit card companies and PayPal, demanding that they take down adult games they disapprove of on Steam. This was not Collective Shout's first go with this sort of thing, because in 2014, they tried to get Grand Theft Auto V taken off of store shelves, describing it as a video game that encourages players to brutally murder women for entertainment. Call me crazy, but when I played Grand Theft Auto V, I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the enemies were men. In fact, I think that you kill more aliens in the 3 missions they show up in. Believe it or not, but that campaign was all it took to get Grand Theft Auto V taken off of some stores' shelves. Sure, you couldn't get Grand Theft Auto V at Kmart and Target 3 years after the game's release, but you could still get it. And that was just the way things were going to be. Until now. Getting back to modern times, however, and again, 1,000 emails were all it took to make payment processors capitulate, telling Valve they had to remove content that wasn't against the law but instead went against Mastercard's vague rulings on what was okay to be sold, with Mastercard's rule 5.12.7 getting cited. A merchant must not submit to its acquirer, and a customer must not submit to the interchange systems any transaction that is illegal, or in the sole discretion of the corporation may damage the goodwill of the corporation or reflect negatively on the marks. That last part could literally be used for anything. It genuinely means nothing and can be used as a justification for whatever Mastercard wants to remove. Remember, Mastercard is a partner with Roblox of all corporations. Left with either the choice of losing the ability to make money or take down a large amount of adult games, Steam chose the latter, updating its rules and removing multiple games from the store. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. Valve, a company that has absolute integrity when it comes to this sort of thing, starting back in 2018, saying so long as a game was not illegal or just trolling, they would allow it. So what does this mean? It means that the Steam store is going to contain something that you hate and don't think should exist. Unless you don't have any opinions, that's guaranteed to happen, but you're also going to see something on the store that you believe should be there, and some other people will hate it and want it to not exist. It also means that the games we allow on the store will not be a reflection of Valve's values, beyond a simple belief that you all have the right to create and consume the content you choose. The 2 points above apply to all of us at Valve as well. If you see something on Steam that you think should not exist, it's almost certain that someone at Valve is right there with you. In order to stay in business, Steam would have to betray one of their principles, and would justify this decision when talking to GamingOnLinux.com. We were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and the related card networks and banks. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store because loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to purchase other titles and game content on Steam. We are directly notifying developers of these games and issuing app credits should they have another game they'd like to distribute on Steam in the future. Collective Karens would celebrate this as a win online because they had finally found a way to make any company do whatever they wanted. But in that gigantic essay they wrote, this was the most important part. This is a major win for women and girls. Stay tuned for future updates. But you know what wasn't good for girls? The founder of Collective Shout defended the movie Cuties when it came out. Probably the most disgusting movie to have ever ended up on Netflix, and anyone who's seen it should have their hard drives checked. Some thoughts on #Cuties and why I'm not joining the calls to ban. This woman called to ban Grand Theft Auto 5 because it has virtual violence, but did not call for a ban for a movie that actually exploited children. This was never about just getting adult games taken off of Steam. This was the first step in getting rid of anything they made up a reason to get outraged about. And that was Collective Shout's main tactic. They knew most people would not really care about adult games getting taken off the store and were banking on it. But thankfully, their little plan was seen for what it was. But unfortunately, that's where things would start to go the wrong way again, because another platform, itch.io, that mainly sold indie games, also announced that they had gotten the message from payment processors. We have de-indexed all adult, not safe for work content from our browse and search pages. We understand this action is sudden and disruptive, and we are truly sorry for the frustration and confusion caused by this change. This is a time-critical moment for itch.io. The situation developed rapidly, and we had to act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. Unfortunately, this meant it was not realistic to provide creators with advance notice before making this change. We know this is not ideal, and we apologize for the abruptness of this change. This was becoming a problem. Steam just made sure you could no longer buy the games that were taken down. If you had previously purchased them, you could still play them. Itchy, however, took them out of your library. This one, in particular, really affected the creator of the Postal series and supporter of the Stop Killing Games initiative Running with Scissors, saying that they might need to find a new platform to host their game jam on, as well as a special message for Collective Shout. This might affect the yearly Postal Jam event, since they have been hosted on itchy.io, and the new regulations might restrict things too much to the point of ruining your creativity and amount of violence in your games. We might need to find a new home to host the game jam, so feel free to suggest any. Until then, we can assure you the 3rd edition of the Postal Jam is still underway as scheduled, and will feature the winning games one way or another. Upload your game through Itchy as instructed for now. Oh, and Collective Shout? Go fuck yourselves, you sanctimonious pieces of diseased rat shit. All of this genuinely started a movement. First, a Change.org campaign started that was completely against payment processors becoming the moral arbiters of what you can and cannot purchase. That, as of writing, is nearly at 250,000 signatures. Tell Mastercard, Visa, and activist groups stop controlling what we can watch, read, or play. Mastercard and Visa are interfering with legal entertainment, often under the pressure from advocacy groups who want to censor what they deem problematic. We demand an end to this censorship of fiction and the right to choose the stories we enjoy without moral policing. Mastercard and Visa have increasingly used their financial control to pressure platforms into censoring legal fictional content. Entire genres of books, games, films, and artwork are being demonized or deplatformed, not because they're illegal, but because they offend the personal values of executives or activist groups. This behavior is not just overreach, it's blatant hypocrisy. These same payment processors allowed platforms like OnlyFans to operate with minimal oversight despite multiple credible reports and lawsuits alleging the presence of real sexual abuse content involving real-life minors. That is a criminal failure of responsibility, yet when it comes to entire fictional depictions, these same companies act swiftly, shutting down creators, restricting access, and acting as global censors. These were clear cases of debanking, something that most people weren't really aware of for decades, which changed when it was talked about heavily on the Joe Rogan Experience in November of 2024.
Debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank. You get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. By the way, you can't.
How is that legal?
Well, exactly. They don't have to debank you. They just have to put pressure on the private company banks to do it, and then the private company banks do it because they're expected to. This has been happening to all the crypto entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. This has been happening to a lot of the fintech entrepreneurs, anybody trying to start any kind of new banking service, because they're trying to protect the big banks. And then this has been happening, by the way, also in legal fields of economic activity that they don't like. Under the Obama administration, they started to debank legal marijuana businesses businesses, escort businesses, and then gun shops, just like your gun manufacturers, and just like you're done, you're out of the banking system. And so if you're running a medical marijuana dispensary in 2012, like you, guess what? You're doing your business all in cash because you literally can't get a bank account, you can't get a Visa terminal, you can't process transactions, and it's hit the tech world like we've had like 30 founders debanked in the last 4 years. Yeah. It's been a big recurring pattern.
30.
We can't live in a world where somebody starts a company that's a completely legal thing and then they literally like get sanctioned, right, and embargoed by the United States government through a completely unaccountable, no due process. None of this is written down. There's no rules. There's no court. There's no decision process. There's no appeal.
Collective Shout would try to set the record straight with some classic gaslighting, but we live in the real world, and we know they're okay with real-life exploitation of girls, but choose to target video games because it's easier to actually make a difference there than it is in real life. By this point, the movement had gone from just signatures to out-Karening the Karens. Now, the new plan was to do exactly what Collective Shout had done, calling payment processors with complaints en masse and sending emails. Remember, it only took 1,000 emails for payment processors to decide that they were going to become the moral arbiters of the internet, and this was much, much, much worse. In fact, it's gotten to the point that the call centers couldn't handle it anymore. Visa card representative yelled at me. I called and simply asked about the content guideline. I got, "We've been getting thousands of calls. You talked to somebody? Who did you call? Other people accepted what I said, so why don't you? At Visa is cooked, Lamau." What a turn of events. These banks who like to use risk assessment now will have to make a risk assessment of which is going to get their call centers blown up more. Even Anita Sarkeesian of all people was against this and came out of nowhere to make a stance against payment processors deciding on what's okay and what's not. Not because of video games, however, because of sex work. I really hope someone starts a counter-campaign to fight this regressive, puritanical nonsense. There are way more people who want to buy and support sex work and sexual materials, or at the very least, don't think it should be banned. If you don't remember, Anita Sarkeesian also said that Grand Theft Auto is sexist because you can kill women in it. But you know what she never wanted? The game getting banned. And of course, Collective Shout tried to do their one trick, gaslighting and guilt-tripping people into blaming Elon Musk for all of the hate that they were getting, all because Twitter allowed people to talk about what was going on. Elon Musk's actions have put us at greater risk. Collective Shout founder Melinda Tankard Rist said her group will not be silenced by gamers, threats, and abuse. Musk's actions have fueled threats of violence, harassment, and digital abuse of our all-female team across all our platforms, and forced us to take extra measures for our personal safety, she said. This consumer revolt clearly wasn't slowing down either, and Mastercard tried to do its own damage control, saying that they had nothing to do with this and that they were not the ones who told Steam to take down those games. Well, that could have been believed if they weren't community noted with both Valve and Ichi.io saying that they were the reason this happened. Clarifying recent headlines on gaming content, Mastercard has not evaluated any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creator sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations. Our payment network follows standards based on the rule of law. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure Mastercard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. Both Steam and Ichi have stated their removal of adult content came from pressure by payment processors, including Mastercard. Furthermore, Mastercard and other payment processors have a documented history of refusing service to Japanese retailers over illegal adult content. Either Steam and Ichi lied or Mastercard did. What's more likely? Even Kotaku would get a statement from Valve about how slimy that whole statement was. Mastercard never told Valve to take those games down. They told the acquiring banks working for them to tell Valve to take them down. You can't get more dishonest if you tried. Mastercard did not communicate with Valve directly, despite our request to do so. Valve's statement sent over email to Kotaku said, Mastercard communicated with payment processors and their acquiring banks. Payment processors communicated this with Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's policy since 2018 of attempting to distribute games that are legal for distribution. Payment processors rejected this and specifically cited Mastercard's Rule 5.12.7 and risk to the Mastercard brand. Well, you know what they say.
Consequences have actions, pimp.
Collective Shout got exposed for being what they really are and not the face they try to put on for the public. After getting all this bad press, Collective Shout had the genius idea to e-beg for help. We cannot let our enemies win. Dear Redacted, over the last 2 weeks, we have been subjected to the largest coordinated cyber attack in Collective Shout's 15-year history. 10 petitions were launched against us, full of false accusations. Elon Musk retweeted one of them. There are currently hundreds of YouTube videos slandering us. Protect the movement. Our enemies are trying to destroy our operating systems. They've gone after our global allies, charitable partners, ambassadors, and other backers. They've tried to get social media platforms to shut us down, but we won't let them. Our opponents will stop at nothing to bring us down. They've made that very clear. That's why we need your help right now to protect our movement. A movement on track for its biggest year of victories ever, including this one. And honestly, by this point, I don't even know what's going on. This all ended with PayPal telling Steam that unless their payments going through are in United States, Canadian, or Australian dollars, the pound, yen, or euro, PayPal will no longer facilitate transactions on Steam. PayPal is currently unavailable in your country. PayPal use on Steam is currently unavailable in my currency. Why? In early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that their acquiring bank for payment transactions in certain countries was immediately terminating the processing of any transactions related to Steam. This affects Steam purchases using PayPal in currencies other than Euro, Canadian dollar, Great British Pound, Japan Yen, Australian dollar, and United States dollar. We hope to offer PayPal as an option for these currencies in the future, but the timeline is uncertain. We are also evaluating adding additional payment methods on Steam for the customers affected by this. In the meantime, please use one of our other payment methods during checkout. If you can't use any of the available options, you can consider using a Steam wallet code to add funds to your account. So yeah, if you wanted to play a new game or wanted to buy one that you've had your eyes on for a little while, that's not happening anymore if you wanted to buy it through PayPal. All because some acquiring bank decided that you can't have it. And you get all this with no legal recourse whatsoever. Payment processors interfering with legal businesses like this have gotten out of hand, and it's not going to stop unless it's nipped in the bud right now. I plan on seeing the new Conjuring movie when it comes out. I'm sure somebody would find something in it to be questionable or tasteless, so maybe that should be banned too. Despite things looking bad, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. On August 7th, 2025, Donald Trump signed the executive order guaranteeing fair banking for all Americans. Today, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order to ensure that federal regulators do not promote policies and practices that allow financial institutions to deny or restrict services based on political beliefs, religious beliefs, or lawful business activities. Ensuring fair access to banking for all Americans. Is this a magic fix to the issue? No, it's not, and it still has a few holes in it that people are already aware of. But it's definitely a step in the right direction. If these banks and payment processors want to continue operating in the United States, they're going to have to follow these rules. And if they try to skirt the rules and keep this going on, there can be another executive order. We don't live in the 1800s anymore. If you want to live in the modern world, you're going to need these services, and as such, they should be seen as utilities. The electric company isn't facing a brand risk because of what you chose to do with the electricity they provided, and the fact that Mastercard can pick and choose where to apply these standards should scare you.
Joey got it for the people of America. I am never going to financially recover from this.